Mogilino scandal in an orphanage in Bulgaria. We had the Mogilino case and so on, which was publicly displayed, detected by journalists and then breaking to the national press. And discussing what we were doing with social infrastructure under the structural funds in Bulgaria, we asked the Bulgarians what they were doing in order to address the orphanage issue. And we found very quickly they were not doing very much. Yes, they were doing. Why? Because actions targeting orphans were mixed up with all kinds of other actions like normal kindergarten, cultural centers, and so on. So yes. It was quite obvious that the orphans wouldn't stand a chance in that kind of competition. The focus wouldn't be on them. Then we quickly agreed with the Bulgarians, with a little bit of pressure, that we should earmark 25 million euro for this, just to have something to start with and to get a logic going. And we then started discussing with them how that could be spent. The Commission went to visit a couple of orphanages, and we realized that the conditions were, of course, not scandalous as such. We didn't see anything that would qualify to be a scandal, but we saw a sort of lack of vision in the process. And that led us to a situation where we were looking for expertise. It's a very messy office here. We were looking for expertise.
People who work always make mess. People who don't work don't make mess.
I don't work much and I make a lot of mess. So we were looking at expertise, and by chance we got into contact with a member of the Commissioner Spiegler cabinet, so the commissioner responsible for social affairs, who is not our commissioner. And he mentioned to us that there was an expert group working on a new paper on deinstitutionalization. And that's where we, for the first time, discovered that there was a notion like deinstitutionalization. A couple of these experts then very quickly educated us and told us you have to be very careful not to go in and prolong the life of existing badly designed institutions with too many children and sort of very impersonal and so on. We should start dismantling these. And that took us into a collaboration which took more or less 1.5 years. With this group, they invited us to the meetings. They put in place a subgroup to follow the Bulgarian case, and we could invite the Bulgarians up here to Brussels, and there was an exchange of view. And we then simply, within a couple of months, embarked totally on the process of deinstitutionalization, not knowing how we should get that organized. We had some discussions with the Bulgarians, and they immediately said, no, we agree, we should deinstitutionalize, but then of course the devil is in the details. What do you call deinstitutionalization? Just moving children from one institution to the other. Relabeling the institutions is of course not deinstitutionalization, but in particular following the change of government in July, we faced a real commitment of the Bulgarian government to actually walk the talk. Now, how does that relate to what happened in Romania? Many of the experts we were working with, international experts, British experts and others, had a lot of hands-on experience from the Bulgarian exercise from the 90s. Of course, the starting point in Bulgaria with the, I think, 200,000 was crazy, and there's nothing like that in Bulgaria. But still, the deinstitutionalization exercise in Romania is, for the time being, the flagship exercise in good and in bad. So the fortunate position we have now is that we can learn from this exercise, and are learning. What has been learned from that exercise is now feeding into the Bulgarian exercise, and we can try
from the Romanian exercise.
Exactly. So the Romanian exercise, I would say, is the starting point, and the Romanian system managed to downsize the number of children. Now, whether these children are well treated, have much better conditions than before, I think that's an open debate. But we wanted the Bulgarians to learn as much as possible from the Romanian exercise, and I think that is what is happening. So, what results do we have now in Bulgaria? We don't have much to show, but we are very proud to say that we have a process. First of all, we have earmarked funding from the structural funds. So we have 25 million from the European Regional Development Fund, and we have another 14 million earmarked from the European Social Fund. So adding up to 39 million euro plus co-financing. That's already a sizable amount of money. It's not more than what FAR already paid in Romania, for instance.
Yeah.
But it's a lot of money. It's a lot of money to ring fence. It's a little bit exceptional for the structural funds to ring fence funding after the programming has been done. But in this case, it was possible due to a sort of trilateral agreement with the Bulgarians. So that was us here in DG Regional Policy, the colleagues in DG Social Policy, and then the Bulgarian government. We wanted the exercise to be comprehensive. First of all, the first struggle was to make them sign up really and unreservedly to de-institutionalization, not just to pretend that they were doing it, but really to do it. That we achieved. Then the rest is a matter of organization. They had already previously established a group which didn't work all too well, but from the new government they established a two-tier interministerial group at the level of deputy ministers to cooperate. And there, the Bulgarians, on their own initiative, managed to include all the relevant ministers or ministries. So social affairs, education, in our case, regional development, which takes our funding, so funding to the municipalities, Ministry of Justice, Ministry of Health.
Yeah.
So really the full picture, I think there are 7 ministries, but then again, there are no ministries which are not relevant. So they're all around the table. For instance, notably to get the Ministry of Health on board was not a small challenge, but they got there. So they have this group at deputy minister level, and then they have, to support this group, they've established a technical group of staff of the ministries, and they have put the Child Protection Agency into the role of the leader of the exercise. We then recommended for them to sign out to draw up an action plan for the years to come, which they started doing. And we got a first paper where we said, fine, this is more like a strategy. This is not really the action plan we are looking for, but it's a good strategy. Now can we get the action plan? Within the next weeks, we're going to have that action plan, and I'm very pleased to say that we have achieved 2 main things, or they are doing 2 main things. Don't get the impression that we are telling them everything that they have to do. It's not true, but I mean, of course, we are softly following what they do. First of all, the action plan will be for 10 years, so nobody pretends that we can just close the institutions in a couple of years. So compared to the Romanian exercise, the exercise will be much longer. There will simply be more time in order to ensure that no children are moved out of institutions without a genuine quality assessment of their possibilities, their capacity and so on, and their needs. So we will not just have children sent back to parents that don't exist, or to family members that don't want them or do not understand their maybe physical or psychological needs. So 10 years we have, and that's a long time for a government to sign up for. And secondly, the action plan will, we hope, that's what we've been promised, will be comprehensive. That means it will really get around the topic, all the needs. Not only what we are going to do with EU funding, but all the needs. Now, I wait for the action plan in order to judge the quality, of course, but what I expect to see is our actions at various levels. There will be up top, on the top, there will be some actions that are taken directly by government. So actions of organization internally, we have suggested to them to earmark also funding to run the exercise, to make sure we have enough staff in the ministry, in the child protection area, in the child protection agency, in the Ministry of Social Affairs and so on. So enough staff, and the hiring of experts to design procedures and projects. Secondly, a number of flagship actions will have to be undertaken at a national level, like the reform of the education of social workers, maybe the reform of the status of social workers. Mm-hmm. That is something we can easily do with project money. We can pay a university in international cooperation to simply reform its curriculum. We can largely pay for the education of the first new generation of well-educated social workers. There we would expect to see a study being done on the financing model. Right now there's a model similar to Romania where some allocations are made to the local level, and the local level is responsible, but the municipalities are of course systematically underfinanced. And that creates a risk that the system lacks quality, materially and educationally. So the financing model will have to be reviewed, and that will take time, and that doesn't mean that there's going to be a miracle solution, but that's one of the things we have time for in the Bulgarian exercise, which had to be done in a hurry in Romania.
But right? We still have 5 minutes, and I have 2 questions for you. First of all, comparing with the Romanian model and let's call it old experience of the 90s, is the Bulgarian model going to work with Bulgarian or foreign or international NGOs and charities in this 10 years process?
Yeah. First of all, in this interministerial group, the Bulgarians very easily agreed to include NGOs. So the NGOs are around the table and have been actively cooperating to put in place the action plan. They are really instrumental in suggesting.
Bulgarian or international?
They are Bulgarian NGOs that are typically associated with main umbrella organizations. So some of the people we've been working with here in this Spiegler group, they have their friends.
You have names of some of the international organizations?
ARC, for instance, ARC is in there. Lumos is represented. Some of the very big ones. But I can find the names of the representatives that are.
Because I do know about Lumos. I know this is J.K. Rowling, right?
Yeah.
And
right now Lumos is on their own expenditure, are advising the Bulgarian government.
Yeah, it says here they provide advice and support to the European Commission.
Yeah, and
best way of how to use funding.
If you want to speak to an expert, the name is Georgette Mulher, Mulher. But for instance, ARC has a lot of. They've just closed a big exercise of de-institutionalisation in 2 Bulgarian towns. And for us, it's very important that they're around the table. I mean, they have just fresh experience right from there, and that's what we need. So it's very good news for us to see that the NGOs are included. It's not that easy to obtain real cooperation between NGOs and government in any area in Central Europe. Right?
But did you fear, like it happened in the Romanian case, and when MEP Boștinaru, when Elena Basescu, when everybody says about the Italians trying to lobby for Romanian reopening the adoptions, are you afraid of this kind of
No, I'm not
things?
afraid of, first of all, I'm not afraid that the adoption issue will I mean, that there's a sort of hidden adoption agenda. No way. I mean, because there are just too many NGOs and too many experts already around the table. So that's not going to happen. I think that's way too late, and we are not in the same, what should I say, innocent context as we maybe were in the 90s. So now everybody knows that the risk is there. So there's a high awareness.
I wanted to, I brought to this because I wanted to get to the last question to you, is that, as I told you in the beginning, I do have reports from Bulgarian journalists, fellows, colleagues, and things I just follow on this issue for about 1.5 years now. I've been working only on this kind of investigative stories. And there were some stories, like you told me about that first scandal, about on the market, on the what they call the adoption market, which is always on the internet. I mean, it's easy to check. You can see a lot of children, available children from Bulgaria, usually being like handicapped or children with serious health problems that will be taken out from this whatever they are, orphanages or whatever, and they are going to probably, that's one of the fear, one of the streams, it's not the mainstream, but one of the fears is that these children are going to end up being adopted in whatever countries, and what's going to happen to them, like almost like the 1990s story, that kind of fear. What do you think about this?
We need to have this fear permanently, of course, or we need to be aware of the risk. But as I said, I think there are too many experts around the table, and I think first of all, we are now also aware. We will follow this exercise over the next years to come, and we simply know too many people who will report that back to us if something like that happens. I think one of the principles I wish to see in the action plan and expect to see is also that charity financing is not the long-term solution. So essentially, we don't want to drive the charity providers out. Of course, I mean, they are filling a fantastic gap and doing a great job. But long-term, and I want the Bulgarians to sign up to that, charity financing or co-financing is not the option. We need a system which is self-sustaining.
A state system.
Yeah, a state system or local government system. We need a financing model that is self-sustainable. And over the next 10 years, we could come in with massive funding and will. So I've said to everybody in Bulgaria, money in the short term is absolutely not the problem. But at the same time, we need to be careful now not to establish services and facilities that we cannot pay for long term. So nobody will be allowed, and I think there will also be a principle in the action that nobody will be allowed to sign services that are not long-term financiable. Of course, we rely on Bulgaria to become richer over the next 10 years, but there are no miracles. So I think really to come back to the comparison with Romania, I think what we have here, unless we fail, but I don't think we can fail anymore, we have a more cognitive exercise where there is simply more awareness around the table before we even start. The system has accepted to combine the EU financing with a long-term national reform. So what we would do with our funding, the ERDF funding, is that we would go out in municipalities and we will finance the project-based closure of a couple of institutions. Now, in addition to that, we get a national system, and essentially with the European Social Fund money, which will come in and scrutinize and maybe improve the child protection agencies, the quality assurance of the system, so on, and reform the national curriculum of social workers and address these underlying threats to a well-functioning system. So without being an expert on the Romanian exercise, I have the impression that in Romania things were done very quickly, and they were done in a logic where, okay, now we change the system and then let's see what happens. It will just have to work. Mm-hmm. And indeed, of course, I'm sure it's a lot better than it was before. Yeah. Here we are taking, first of all, which is a bit painful, but we are taking a year for reflection just. We had some pressure back in August last year to just start immediately. And we agreed, no, we're not going to start until we have an agreed action plan and a clear idea where we're going.
And probably it's going to be much more control on what the NGOs and charities do according to the old experiences, which were like not really nice in Romania, and there is evidence for what happened.
I mean, the adoption issue or the illegal network trafficking issue.
Yeah, it's a kind of a grey zone. I'm not sure if it's legal or illegal. It's a grey zone.
I mean, it's not something that we will have our eyes on all the time, but I mean, as I said, I rely on the quite large number of NGOs that are present to report back. But I also think there's a genuine awareness in the Bulgarian government, and that people accept that this is not a way to do it. I mean, you don't sell your own citizens. That's not an option. It's degrading. So the main solutions are foster care, local adoption, if all other sort of family options are exhausted, and at the last resort, small-scale institutions that are more family-like cells than what we have now. Indeed, the Bulgarians are very keen to start with disabled children, but we have obtained here at the last stage of discussions that they will start with everything at the same time, but the focus for the time being will be on disabled children. This, of course, has the risk that you mentioned, but I think that we will have this under control. It has, one of the advantages that has is that it actually starts with the most difficult group of children first. So we don't run the risk that they are the real left behind. So when all the mainstream children are taken care of, then we have then we have the disabled and the Roma or the mentally disabled as an uncared for group. Now they start with them, and that is fine. It's something we, with Regional Development Fund rules, can easily do something about in the sense that we can easily finance daycare centers. If we need to build new accessible centers for disabled children, we can do that. We can pay for the equipment and so on. And even for so these are long-lasting facilities that will be there beyond the 10 years. So I don't mind so much, but at the same time, I don't accept the logic where we say, okay, first this group and then that group. No, it has to be a comprehensive process, and one of the big things we need to address is how to break the supply line, how to make sure that we get genuine, that we get some of the bad advice services out, as the doctor-based one saying your child will be better off in a clinic.
Typical Balkan problems.
Yeah, and how, and at the same time, how to get some better advice in, so how to have parental advice clinics. One of the real obstacles, one of the challenges will be to have specialized advisors to work with Roma family, because Roma, the Roma minority is a big part of this question, and there's the underlying assumption maybe that these Roma children of poorly functional Roma families, they are better off in an institution. We'll turn them into good citizens. It's just that the system has never proven that it was able to do so. So
yeah,
we need a higher degree of acceptance and also, I mean, but there will be some legal changes as well. I mean, children will need to be able to be claimed back by the parents. I mean, even if the parents deposit their children out of whatever despair they have, they will need the right to get these children back within a foreseeable time. I mean, of course.
Yeah, because Romania still faces big problems with getting the kids home.
So
and part of this big money is going to go to, like, let's say, Lumos and the other NGOs.
Yes, I mean, I saw tentatively that I think they will draw up a list of activities. If we say, and that will be by project logic. If we say we will reform the curriculum for social workers, how would we do that? I would imagine, but I'm just speculating, but that would be my advice to them, launch a tender to be open to universities or NGOs to accompany this success with one or two Bulgarian target institutions where this has to happen. So we just follow project logic. There will be other issues where they will simply tender services to be done. But there will definitely be a role both for municipalities, essentially for the investments into infrastructure, and NGOs in order to establish new services. What is important for me is that the involvement of NGOs also here at local level is very transparent, because also some of the NGOs are in competition as well. So we need to break all the rumors up front. I mean, people need to know that they all have a chance. And then also, an NGO is not an NGO. I mean, there are good and bad NGOs. There are NGOs with real experience and NGOs with bad experience. So we are entitled to have a little bit of quality assurance or quality expectations from the NGOs. One of the important steps we need to see, and I'm sure that will happen, is a consolidation of the organization of Bulgarian NGOs in this process. But I'm sure that this will come. So to conclude, I say we're optimistic. We have no results yet. Absolutely zero results. With our findings, that there's not one child that has left any institutions. And we still have to be patient, because with our part of the funding, we will probably only start at project level in December. We need the reform now to be spelled out and so on, the main decision to be taken. And once we have a clear framework, we can start applying project logic at local level, which is what we will do. Here, for instance, we are aware that one of the burdens is the building, these big buildings that have to be dismantled. So we're out there in the countryside. The caretakers or the educators are losing their job. It's maybe the only job around in that village. And at the same time, we tell the municipality, get the children out of that building. The municipality still has the building. I mean, it's worth nothing. So one of the things we know already now is that we have to set aside money to reconvert the building. It's not going to help the children, but it's going to help the municipality, and we need the motivation and the commitment of the municipality to walk the talk. So I don't expect this to be easy at all, and I've warned several times people saying, don't tell people this is cheap, or don't tell them this is easy or anything else, because it's really not. And even internally here in the commission, we've had to change a little bit. We said already a year ago, okay, this is difficult. And yet it concerns such a small number of people, blah, 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 blah. But at the end of the day, we will set aside as much efforts to get this functioning as we do to the motorways. The motorways are also not functioning. So we are here internally with our scarce resources, we spend that many efforts. How will this deflect on Romania? Because there will be some synergy, I think. First of all, with this Bulgarian exercise, and also with the Czech exercise, which is essentially a nationally driven, it didn't come out of the commission, we have two deliberate de-institutionalization exercises, and we have now created a forum or an awareness also inside the commission. So the two directorate generals have had to start cooperating on this. And
which ones?
The DG Employment, so they are the ones with the social funds. They're the owners of that kind of process. And then DG Regional Policy, which is us, maybe followed by DG Enlargement, by so on. We're not sure about that, but DG Agriculture will, for instance, have a role to play. DG AIDCO with regard to external projects and projects in Africa and elsewhere. So there's an awareness rising inside the European Commission. We've had our first meeting and we will have a couple of more meetings in order to educate ourselves. We don't have an overall policy yet. So there's no de-institutionalization policy. That we're not even allowed to say we promote de-institutionalization. But at the same time, the rationale we are applying is to say we're spending taxpayers' money in order to address a problem. What is the problem? The problem in our case is the poor state of these institutions. What is the right solution? Is it to upgrade these institutions or to dismantle them? And then we just consider sustainability, cost efficiency of the investment. We have enough evidence to allow us to say that the classical large-scale institutions have failed, even when they're relatively well-funded. They do not produce well-functioning citizens and so on the contrary. So we could take the risk and say, okay, let's allocate all the funding in a deinstitutionalization logic. And then if that is wrong, I mean, let's come back to that in 15 years. But for the time being, we're quite convinced that there are a sufficient number of experts, and there are a sufficient number of publications, and simply scientific evidence, social evidence that this is working.
Are you afraid?
Yeah.
I think that was it.
Yeah.
Because it's
good, and I need to rush into my